Yeah, a little bit of background about Sewn Adaptive. Lynn and I came together about a year ago and started the groundwork for what is now Sewn Adaptive, which is an online and in-person alterations and tailor shop for people with disabilities. In person, we're able to do pretty much any alteration you might need, but online and through the mail, we operate a lot doing alterations that are more objective, things that make quality of life easier, like magnetic zippers for dexterity challenges, adding in magnetic closures instead of buttons, or just adding in sort of discrete closures like invisible zippers into pants for access to medical devices, AFOs, prosthetics, any type of thing that might make the quality of life of somebody with a disability a bit better, improve their confidence and independence while wearing their clothes, giving them options. You mentioned, Chelsea, the idea of getting custom clothes made. Should you roll your sleeves? Should you not? All that. For people with varying types of upper limb difference, there's different alterations that we can do within proportion that give the appearance that a garment hasn't been altered or is being shoved one way or another. We have one client where his arms are significantly different lengths, and so we shorten his hoodies individually. And while they might not like on somebody who doesn't have an upper limb difference, they might be short on each side differently. The illusion that's created by doing that is that the hoodie looks like it's not adjusted at all because it hits the points the exact same way. We do that type of stuff all the time. That's more of our in-person stuff. But as far as I was hearing about, I think you said Elena with an upper limb difference, and for kids, one of our biggest and most popular alterations to do is adding a magnetic zipper to their already existing jackets and hoodies. Kids already have a hard time zipping up their jackets, but having a magnetic zipper, especially for an upper limb difference at any point in your life, just might make life easier. It makes life easier for everybody. Those zippers are great, but those could make a really big difference. I know Lynn is really passionate about this specific one, so I'll let you take it from there, Lynn.
Well, with kids and with people with disabilities, dexterity comes up all the time, and the magnetic zippers are just, matter of fact, my husband, who prefers anything that's convenient, when I showed him the magnetic zippers, he was like, "Can you change out all my hoodies?" And it was like, well, with all my free time, you bet. But it's one of these things that has just made a huge difference. And I'm trying to think if I have one in here. When we bounce back, I'll look, 'cause I'm pretty sure I do. And but especially for kids, it's made a huge difference because it basically attracts to its other side. So there's none of the fumbling at all of threading the end of the zipper into where the pull, then comes up. And then with adding either a longer tab to the zipper pull, it just makes it easy. You know what I mean? You just pull it, versus having to thread it and pull it and all that. And zipper pulls, when you talk about dexterity challenges, that applies to a lot of disabilities, but it also applies to those of us that are getting older. And all of us one day will have dexterity challenges. So it just addresses that for everyone, and they look like zippers. It's fancy in its technology, if you would, but it looks like everyone else, which that's kind of one of our goals, is to make sure that fashion is literally for everyone. And even though it's an adaptive closure choice, it could be something that anyone would choose. If that makes sense.
I went ahead and added the link to that specific video that we have on our Instagram about about adding the zipper in or changing out a zipper on my friend Mike's daughter. So she's 2 years old, and she wasn't able to zip up her favorite hoodie, so we changed out the zipper, and she's a big fan of it. So I linked that in there. It talks about how we do it. We have a bunch of videos online that kind of talk about how we do the alteration if people at home want to try it themselves and not have it sent out, especially when it's more objective things like where you have to measure. And so we do offer that, but there's the link, and you can check out our Instagram there too. And there's a whole bunch of other videos that cover dexterity. Lynn, if you don't have a zipper, I obviously am at work right now, so I have a bunch of them that we can
Yeah,
show.
there should be some in the drawer.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have that whole jacket.
Oh,
Right?
you would right there on the line. The other thing I was thinking about when you talked about the adaptions we've done specifically for upper limb difference, with proportion and relative to children, and like the longevity of their clothes. What's kind of great about doing this alteration is, you do the alteration. So say the sleeve length ends at the point that's plausible, the point that typically at the wrist. If somebody with an upper limb difference, that's not their proportion, we make sure that the cuff lands where the wrist would be, right? And so when he's talking about, like, when we developed this specific adaptation, it was literally on the fly at a runway show. This same client that we ended up doing it for multiple times as a client, he was a model in the show, and they had given him, the clothes they gave him were a regular hoodie. And we figured out this adaptation literally like an optical illusion. And when he had it on the runway, everybody was trying to figure out, like, what's the issue, right? Which it's like, because visually you just couldn't tell. But relative to kids, what's great is you can do that adaptation, and then in a refashion way, because especially with kids grow this way for quite a while before they grow this way. It's like, I sew for my grandchildren all the time, and the chest and the waist measurement, it stays the same until they're like 12. You know what I mean? It's just like this. And so if you have a child that's obviously with every year is growing taller, from a refashion standpoint, you can add back in. You can just keep adding back in until, the body length is, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's a lot of things you can do to really have longevity, especially if it's something that they really like. And because, clothing in general is expensive, it's like, making it last and doing these tweaks. And, I mean, we love to do things in a refashion way because it acknowledges sustainability, but it's also a way to really be creative.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and show you as the best I can, being, working as I am here, the magnetic zipper. Usually you really have to feed these things together, but with this, the magnet, see, they just come together and it's already set. All I have to do then is just pull it. I don't need to actually.
Just mind blown, honestly.
Yeah, it just comes right together. So you don't have to do that kind of fumbling with it to make it fit.
That'd be nice for everybody to not have to, because it's always harder sometimes to get those zippers to go in. So that'd be nice.
Oh,
But
totally.
just because it's mainstream doesn't mean it's the best option.
Right.
Right.
Well, the irony behind the development of the magnetic zipper had nothing to do with being adaptive or being available for people, with disabilities. It was developed for skiers.
Interesting.
My hands are cold. They don't work like they need to.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's pretty impossible to do with gloves, huh?
right.
Interesting.
So
Well,
I'm
Go
I
for
was
it.
going to say, sorry to interrupt. I'm intrigued. So, how do you, I understand, I guess, totally how you would help somebody in person. How do you go about figuring out the sizes and stuff like that for, say, someone who lives in Texas or Northern California or Utah or New York or something like that? How do you go about fitting them?
Well, there's two different ways that we do that. We offer subjective and objective alterations. Our objective alterations are things that we know we really can't screw up your garment. Changing the zipper out, changing the buttons from magnets, adding in a 12-inch or an 18-inch or 24-inch invisible zipper to the inside of your jeans, depending on what your prosthetic is. Those type of things we know we can do. We don't need you to even be here for. We do certain things like wheelchair users will taper their pants or crop their suit jackets so that they are a bit more proportionate. Those type of things are harder to do online because we need to see people in person. So there's more limitations on what we can do online, though we do have online appointments. So we would do like a Zoom call kind of like this with somebody. So sort of an online appointment. And there are certain, again, limitations to that. Like you can't really get somebody's pant length off there, but we are still able to offer the vast majority of the adaptive alterations that we currently do without having to have somebody measured if they were sending in their garment. You know, they send us different hoodies. We can shorten the length of the zippers to the exact length of the hoodie so that the quality of the product is maintained and the aesthetic of the product is maintained. And so far, anything that we've done objectively, we haven't had any problem with. Some people though will send in references. So we don't need to measure you if you want all your pants tapered to the exact amount of the reference sample that you sent in. So, you know, 5 pairs, but then, make them all the length of this one pair. No problem at all. You know, that's another thing we'll do too. So, just case to case, it changes a little bit, but our objective alterations are really one of our bigger focuses with everything, because we can service the most amount of people and make the most amount of change that we can within the fashion industry.
But like with the proportion, like the limb difference proportion, like on the hoodie, with the video conference, you can be there on the video, mark with a pin where you want it to end, send it in, and we can take off the cuff, shorten it, put the cuff back on, and do that specific alteration that way.
Right.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Not so much a question, but just more so, I'm excited that you're bringing them to our attention. When we first had Elena, hi, Mamas. Hi. Oh, okay, come here. We had her in the fall, and
Hello.
so a lot of her onesies were long sleeved, and so my mother-in-law would alter them for a little bit for us, but you could tell they were altered. And so I was appreciative, but it bothered me because like the cuff would be like, it wouldn't be tight to her wrist, and it would just be flared. And I just thought, oh, this is, so ever since then, we just have always rolled up her sleeves. And I thought, well, we're going to have to find a more permanent solution when she's older and not growing out of clothes so quickly. So I'm appreciative of hearing of this, because I just thought, what are we going to do with clothes that she's going to have a little bit more longevity with? I don't want her clothes to look so obviously altered.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because Lynn and I have an extensive background in fashion. We both worked as fashion designers. Before we started Sewn Adaptive, Lynn had been a costume designer for film and television for many years, and I had run clothing factories both in Los Angeles and a few other states. So we have a huge amount of attention to detail as far as making sure that a quality product goes out and we maintain the integrity of the garment. And that's the biggest part of what we do, is that your garment shouldn't look medical. It shouldn't look adaptive in the sense like a bad adaptive. It should just be adaptive. And people are doing alterations at home that definitely improve quality of life, but maybe don't address issues of confidence or visuals, just aesthetically. Since Lynn and I both have a creative background, we really apply that in everything we do and make sure that when we adapt a garment, we are totally making sure that we're not changing the way that it looks. We're just trying to create, like we had mentioned before, this optical illusion. And I think that Elena's proportion for clothing is similar to our friend Oscar that we had mentioned with the hoodie situation. It does need to be shortened, and sometimes that, if that's not done correctly, it can look a little bit odd. And I know exactly, when you were telling me, I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't tell you how many thousands and thousands of those cuffs I have sewn on in my lifetime so far, in factory settings. So I totally know exactly where the issue was. It's honestly rare to find people like your mother-in-law who would even know what to do to begin with, because we have heard from so many clients that even dry cleaners and alteration places who don't have a concept of adaptive look at them like, I really don't know what to do. I can't help you. So it's hard to find. So the fact that she could do that is really, really incredible. And that's a great person to have. But we do have, we have so many videos that we show in one of our videos exactly how to combat that issue when you're sewing and altering at home. So, shrinking the cuff down, making sure that it tapers correctly and it still keeps the same proportion. So we totally understand what you're talking about. We love hearing it though, because I think it revitalizes the knowledge that we already have, and then gives us a little bit more insight into how we can make things even better.
Well, when Chelsea was younger, it was the glove issue, she would put a glove on and the other fingers would just flap. And then she had a friend that actually cut and sewed a glove for her. And then that's where we got the idea to do the same thing. So we did, I think, a pair of ski gloves for her, and just some other warm gloves in the summer or in the winter time.
But I lose them like it's my day job, so I need more.
I know. We need to do your gardening gloves now. So
Yeah, those are next.
yeah.
When you were in our shop, Chelsea, and you talked about the glove, it's like I literally have not been able to stop thinking about it, about designs around it. And then it's like, that's one of the other parts about what we do, is that we absolutely love it when people will just be honest with what's not working, because no two of us are the same. No two of us have the same challenges. And unless we're walking in your shoes, we don't know. It's like, as soon as you said that, it was like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
But then immediate, it's like, okay, how can I do that? Awesome. And that's all we do all day long, is just, these design challenges, which we love because they're the stuff that's currently out there. Isn't great, and the variety is low, and the cost is expensive.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. And so our whole mission is to have as many options in your everyday brands available for whatever the challenges are that you're dealing with.